My name's Jim Johnson. I'm the chair of Collective Encounters, and I've been a board member now for, well, gosh, nearly 10 years, and that's not nearly as long as Collective Encounters have been running. We've been now going for 15 years, and in that time, we've seen the transformative nature of our work impact massively on the participants that are involved in what we call collaboratively theatre for social change. In addition to that, though, I think it's important that through that transformative work, we've also supported a range of professionals, both historically and currently, to continue to deliver that work in a range of settings out in communities and closer to home near our base on Bridport Street in Liverpool. I'm not going to say any more other than to thank you once again for coming and introduce you to the two people who are going to be delivering this afternoon for us. If I can introduce Matty Elliott, who is our associate. You've got a clap. Matty Elliott is our associate artist and training director at Collective Encounters. You'll be hearing from Matty in a moment. Firstly, I'd like to introduce the person who is essentially the fulcrum for all of this work. She's our leader. She is an expert.
Co-leader.
She's an expert in the field of theatre for social change. She's our artistic director and chief executive. Please give a big welcome to Sarah Thornton.
Thank you, Jim. Jim is really kind when he says things like that, but it isn't me. This is a company that is a collective, and it's built on a wealth of experience and expertise from staff across the board. And all of that staff team and participant team have been really involved in building what we're about to launch today, which is our Centre for Excellence in Participatory Theatre. So again, to just reiterate Jim's welcome to all of you who are here live in Liverpool, and also those of you who are watching us digitally in different places. That's our first live streaming event that we've done, so we're quite excited, if a bit terrified. If you would like to tweet during the event today, either here or digitally, to contribute to the conversation, to add things to what we're saying, or to tell us that there's a technical issue, then you will find a Twitter link up there, which is a bit blue, bit tricky to see. What does it say? It says #excellence in participatory theatre. So we're going to share with you a lot of the work that we've done and the resources that we've built and collated as part of the centre today. But before we start into that, I just wanted to talk a bit about why a Centre for Excellence in Participatory Theatre, and before we tell you about what it is. So I suppose there are three main reasons that we felt the need to develop this initiative. The first is that over the last 10 years, there's been a massive increase in practice in participatory arts generally and participatory theatre more specifically. Now, I am talking predominantly about the UK, and the brief for the Centre for Excellence is about supporting and enhancing and nurturing the development of brilliant practice in the UK. But for all of those of you who are watching from different parts of the world, it's really important that that centre connects in internationally to the amazing work that's happening, so that we can learn from excellent international practice, and we can share our work, and we can build collaborations and partnerships with peers across the world. So again, I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But just to focus for a moment on the position in the UK. I suppose that increase in practice over the last 10 years has been driven in England by Arts Council's drive for great art for everyone, which has been their strategy for the last 10 years. And the Arts Councils in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland have all had very similar policies, which have been about taking art out of elite houses that were traditionally perceived as excellence and bringing it out into communities. And Arts Council England are currently rolling out their draft strategy for consultation for the next 10 years, which very much keeps art at the heart of communities, and it keeps access as a real driving principle behind what it's at. Also, the government, the UK government, in the last few months just have produced a really important report where they talk about the social impact of culture and sport across the spectrum, from criminal justice to education to all of those kind of social impacts. And the report, which is by DCMS, is recommending to the House of Commons that arts, culture and sport are really embedded in their approach to achieving social outcomes. So it's big there. But we also have some concerns, and that is that quantity doesn't always equate with quality. And that while there might be a big push to achieve excellent, or to achieve outreach work and to work more with communities, there isn't always the training or the support or the resourcing to make sure that that happens in meaningful ways. And so our consultation and conversations with our peers, with other organisations who have been at the heart of this work for many of them for decades, has shown that while they're delighted to see the change in ideology around arts, they're concerned that the conversations around excellence and around quality are still too often about the product and not about the process. And they're concerned that when the talk is about the process, then it's about the impact, the metrics, the scientific measurement of it, and not about looking at what do we actually mean by a really excellent participatory arts, or in our case, theatre process. So it's about kind of opening up that conversation a little bit more. And I think there's also a concern in the sector that about the people who are delivering the work, that it is a very educated middle class workforce, that still the arts sector generally in the UK is very undiverse. And while strides have been made to try and tackle that, very little impact has actually been made. So most of the people who are working in some of our most marginalised and disenfranchised communities are highly educated, white, middle class people like me, who, you know, have been doing it, are believing it and are passionate about it, but doesn't necessarily reflect the diversity of the groups that we work with. And so there is a real concern about how we can bring the training and the ability to be excellent participatory theatre practitioners and leaders of this work to a much more diverse base of a cross-cultural workforce. So it's about tackling that diversity issue as well. The other thing, I think, finally, in this kind of the look at the increase of practice, but the not necessarily correlating increase in support to enable it to be excellent, is about that there is a fundamental lack of respect for the expertise that really quality participatory theatre artists and makers have accrued over decades of experience, years of experience, that it's too often perceived that you can just send any old theatre artist out into a community to do a project and it'll be grand. And it doesn't work like that. Those of us who do it, who live it and breathe it, know that it takes an awful lot more. So coming out of that kind of thinking and those conversations with our peers, there's been another piece of realisation, I suppose, on behalf of Collective Encounters, and that is around the training and support needs to really help to improve practice and diversify the sector. So for the last 10 years, we've been doing masterclasses for existing practitioners, sometimes young and emerging practitioners, sometimes people who've been working in the field for a long time, but are wanting to extend their range of practice or widen or deepen the breadth of practice, or simply to take some time out to think about their work, to have the space in a room, to be with like-minded peers, to talk about, well, what are the ethics of this work? How do we ensure that we're protecting ourselves, supporting each other, making really superb work? And so those masterclasses have really illustrated a need for ongoing continual professional development and training for people in the workforce already. And very often We've had freelancers come to us for masterclasses talking about their feelings of isolation, that they feel they're very much in it on their own. They may be employed for a one-off project organisation. They might not have the support that they need there, or the organisation they're working within doesn't really get what that community engagement means. At other instances, it can be a small organisation like Collective Encounters, a tiny little organisation based in Liverpool. It's not easy to feel connected to the other people that are making similar work. So both for individuals and for little organisations, the opportunity to provide a space to learn together, to share together, and to connect, we've seen has been really important. Through our participatory program over the last 15 years, we have unearthed incredible talent. And later on today, the people in the room are going to get to meet the Radical Makers, who are our current cohort of emerging artists, associate artists, who are training and developing and honing their skills with a view for some people to maybe work professionally in the workforce, for other people to just enjoy it a bit more and deepen and extend their knowledge. And Matthew will talk more about that later. But we've seen time and time again that there are people out there engaging in the arts who really have the potential and the talent and the skills to do it, but not the opportunity for learning. So it's about plugging that gap. And the other thing, I suppose, around training and support is that we've identified there's loads of resources out there. This last 2 years, there's been more reports written that are absolutely brilliant than you can shake a stick at. There's loads of them, but how you find the time to read them, how you know which ones are important and which ones aren't, they're big weighty tomes, how you even find out where they all are, or all the toolboxes that are out there, or all the different approaches to excellence and to thinking that are out there. It's like a minefield to navigate. So part of it, again, was about wanting to pull that together. And when we talk, I think that's one of the things I'm most excited about today, is to launch this resource that we have, this digital resource that we have. And I suppose one other thing then is about connecting back to our heritage. So I mentioned about Franco Matarasso's book, A Restless Art. There was another book published, which we feature on the website as well, which is about cultural democracy and the history of the community arts movement. And reading both of those books as personally, it gave me such a strong sense of connection to where we are, to the fact that we are part of a movement that is important and vital, and that if we understand our roots and our heritage, we can have a so much more strong sense going forward of how to make excellent work, how to adapt to these changing times, and how to work and collaborate together. So I think those three things, the increase in practice that's not necessarily commensurate with the supported quality, the training and support needs, and the need to connect, are all part of what has led to us building this Centre for Excellence. It also responds very directly to research that has come up through the Paul Hamlin's Artworks Alliance, through Gulbenkian Sharing the Stage, and other initiatives internationally that have talked about the isolation and the training needs of the sector. So it's not just us and the couple of peers that we've talked to. It is it's been broadly recognised nationally that this is a real gap. So what is the Centre for Excellence? Well, the first thing is that it is specifically focused on participatory theatre. It's not a generalist thing. There will be general resources that have a wider implication than just for theatre, but the focus of all of it comes back all the time to participatory theatre. And it is a virtual centre, as I said earlier, with a UK brief, but with international resonance, we hope. It has three main elements. It's about being a space for a conversation about excellence, not about us, Collective Encounters, saying this is what excellent participatory theatre looks like, because we don't think that one size fits all is appropriate at all. We think it's about having a conversation with our peers, with new practitioners, with very experienced practitioners, talking and sharing to figure out what is excellence for us, because every context that everybody in this room works in or will work in is different and needs to be adapted and responded accordingly. So it's not about defining a really clear, this is what excellent participatory theatre looks like, or about us saying we are the experts. We have expertise, absolutely, as do our peers who we want to share and learn with. Secondly, it's a centre for training and development, which we'll talk more about later. And thirdly, as I mentioned, it's about being a virtual resource centre. We want to spearhead ethical practice and strive for the best practice possible in a whole set of diverse settings. And we want to properly recognise the professionalism that is inherent in this practice, that it is not about simply going out and doing a workshop in a community. It is about a highly professionalised workforce that really needs the resources, the support, the CPD opportunities, the networking opportunities to thrive. So that's what it is and why we're doing it. And what we're going to do now is to talk through some of the resources that we've been collating and building over the last few months. Also to say that it has taken a couple of years in development of ideas and a long time in the development to get it to this point, and it's happened because of funding from Esme Fairbairn, finally, is what's enabled it to actually reach fruition. And it is an evolving thing. So the resources that we have will be evolving, they'll be growing, we'll be adding to stuff. The conversations will help it to evolve and shape. And in fact, the very nature of what it is will respond to feedback that we have from you and from the people that we're working with over the next few years. So, oh, we've got the homepage up already, lovely. So I suppose just to kind of reiterate the importance with the resources, like I said earlier, so many of us work in isolation or we're so busy. I'm very aware, I suppose this started with just thinking about our team, that there were maybe 5 reports that came out in the last 2 years that I thought, my God, they really need to read them, but they're this thick and they're delivering all the time. And how do you have time? You don't do that as bedside reading. So I'm trying to read the stuff and distill it down and share the most important bits and figure out how to disseminate that best. And we thought, well, if that's happening in our organisation, it must be happening everywhere. So it was about trying to figure that through, to support practitioners working out there in very isolated ways, and to pull together the disparate stuff. So we're going to start off, and I would like to just do a quick thanks to Adam from Pixel Dynamics, who has been absolutely amazing at helping us to build this digital resource. We have the content know-how and the expertise in participatory theatre. Fortunately, he has the digital skills. So if there's any glitches, though, blame us, not him. So we're going to start off with something that will give you a chance to hear somebody else's voice for a while instead of mine. And that is a programme that we've called Brief Encounters. So the idea behind Brief Encounters is that it will be a series of 2-minute films that will highlight the key issues or themes to do with participatory theatre, synopsise some of the significant books and reports and articles that are written about it. So in the first instance, what we did was approached a handful of very kind guinea pigs and said, we've no money for this, but we believe in democratising knowledge. Would you agree and would you like to be part of it? So what we have so far is we have the first one was Chrissy Tiller, who has written the brilliant Power Up report for Arts Council's Creative People and Places, and I'm going to show you her film in a moment. We've got Stephen Duncan from the Centre for Artistic Activism in New York, and he's talking about what is artistic activism. We've got Alison Jeffers, who talks about one of the history of community arts books that I mentioned, Cultural Democracy and the Right to Make Art. Alison and Jerry Moriarty wrote this book, and they've done a little 2-minute introduction to what the main content of it is. We've got What is Diversity? Jamie Bedard, who is one of our board members, who's a brilliant theatre maker, is talking about diversity, his perspective on that. We've got me, which we certainly won't play today, talking about the difference between liberal and radical change and what that means to Collective Encounters as an organisation that makes theatre for social change. We've got Arti Prasha, who is a community theatre maker with 40 years experience, ran Spare Tyre for the last 20 years, and she's given a provocation for the future. And finally, we've got Dr. Stephen Hadley, who has recently published an article with Eleanor I can't say her second name, Belfiore, about what is cultural democracy. So that kind of gives you a nice overview of the kinds of themes, the books, the reports that we're trying to pull together. And the idea with the 2-minute films is that for some people that might be quite enough, that might be all you need to know about that theme or that book. For other people, maybe it will be a stimulus to intrigue you to go on and to read the book or to find out more, or we're hoping to use them, for instance, with the Radical Makers as stimulus for discussion and debate in the training sessions to actually get those conversations going. So I think we're going to watch 2 of them now so I can be quiet for a while. Let's start with Chrissy. Matty, thank you.
Hi, I'm Chrissy Tiller. For the past 40 years, I've been a practitioner, thinker, advisor and educator in what we now call socially engaged collaborative arts practice. It's almost 2 years since I was commissioned by Creative People in Places to write Power Up, the think piece I'm going to speak about, yet it feels even more important and relevant than ever, especially as the growing inequity and cruelty of the world we live in means there is even greater need for the arts and cultural organisations to work in solidarity, not only with each other, but with the communities that surround them, with other activists, and all those taking part in the struggle for social justice and political change. Power Up is partly a response to what we mean when we speak about power sharing, but is also what I hope will be a really accessible roadmap to socially engaged and collaborative arts practice. The title itself comes from a work by artist and feminist Rita Kent. In trying to create a piece that allows everyone engaged with this work to dip into and read and reread, focusing on whatever sections seem most relevant or useful at any time, I've also used Kent's structure of asking 10 questions, loosely based on those she used as guidelines for her radical arts school. The questions I've asked and the responses I've collected to them from different art forms and sectors, historically as well as currently, address questions such as power, privilege, cultural capital, reciprocity, ethics and politics, all in terms of more collaborative and socially engaged arts practice. In doing this, I wanted to offer anyone interested in this work an introduction to, or a reminder of some of the important historical and contemporary thinkers who have influenced it. From people like Paulo Freire, Bell Hooks, Stuart Hall, Miles Horton, Angela Davis, Tara Rosso, to Raymond Williams, Augusta Boal, Claire Bishop, the list is endless. It also felt important to question how artists and activists might work together to do more than paper over the cracks of the capitalist system and begin to challenge its very structures, creating space not only for inclusion and agency, but also for dissonance, dissent, and what artist Leanne Simpson once called loving rebellion. With that in mind, like Kent, I've left the 10th question empty. It's for you if you wish to complete. Thank you.
Hi, this is Stephen Duncombe from the Center for Artistic Activism, and I'm here to talk to you about artistic activism. Artistic activism goes by a lot of different names. Political art, socially engaged art, artivism, creative activism. But all these practices have something in common. They're their dynamic mashup of arts and activism. Now, this is a really complicated combination because arts and activism do different work in the world. Activism is all about effect with an E. That is, it's about having a demonstrable impact often on material conditions of a society that often translates into differences in policies and politicians and laws and things such as that. Art, on the other hand, is about affect with an A. It's not so much about changing material conditions as it is about affecting the hearts and souls of people, that is, moving people in such a way that their emotions are touched. Now, the combination of these two things is very, very powerful. And it's very, very powerful because people don't act to change the world because they think it's a good idea, as much as they act to change the world because they feel that it's a good idea, that they're moved to act in the world, and they have the confidence to feel that they can actually change the world and a vision of what that world might be like. And that's what arts can bring to activism. On the other hand, what activism can bring to the arts is that it's wonderful to feel that you can change the world and to have a vision of a different world and to be moved, but unless that's put into practice, then nothing actually changes in the material world. It doesn't have an impact or an effect. But if you can get these two things together, that is the affect of the arts and the effect of activism, well, then you have affective effect or effective affect, or in a word that we designed ourselves, you have affect. And that's the goal of artistic activism. Thank you.
So that's just a little glimpse of two of them. They're all very different. They're all very much individuals talking about their own ideas, their own work. If you have recommendations for things you would like to talk about, if you've got burning ideas, burning themes that you think are pressing for participatory theatre, if you've got a book you've written, an article you've written that you think should be shared and democratised in this way, please get in touch and you'll get all of the contact details later. We're going to move on now and we're going to look at the timeline, which is very exciting. You can also see the YouTube videos that I've been watching on there at the moment. A lot of Queer Eye. Sorry, back to timeline. So, to just go back to the point I was making earlier, those two fantastic histories of community arts really gave me a sense of where I sit in that historical trajectory. What are my roots? What's my heritage? Where am I going forward? And Matty and I simultaneously had been having conversations about, keep scrolling. We'd been having conversations about what are the building blocks that we want to share with our radical makers who to give that kind of theatre history. We don't need to teach every aspect of theatre history, but what are the things that really, really matter that we should know about because they inform our practice and they give us skills, tools, styles, forms that we can use as participatory theatre makers today. And that's what we've tried to do, is we've tried to go through from the 60s. Clearly we could have started in the 30s, we could have started early, we didn't. We started in the 60s through to today, and we've looked at what we believe are the key milestones, the key theatrical moments and forms that have made up the participatory arts movement. So, did you scroll all the way through yet, lovely, or are you still going slowly?
I'm still stuck in the 70s.
So there's a lot in the 70s. The 70s was an awesome decade for participatory arts, clearly. Lots of it happened. We moved into the 80s, Theatre of the Oppressed, participatory theatre. The first time we kind of started hearing that term was in the 90s. Theatre communities of experience. It shifted from being geographical communities to communities of experience. Cross-community arts. Applied theatre. So we're trying to break down what each of these different forms are. And as you can see, there's like a little summary of information that gives you the nuts and bolts of what is that all about. If we, yes, perfect, Matthew, excellent timing, thank you. If we could now click on one of them, let's go for community theatre, because why not, back in the 70s. So if we click on that, we can show how... So you get your copy there, you've still had the copy on the timeline. If you hover over one of the images, Matty, you get to see what that image is. What we've tried to do for each of the entries is to give a historical example. So in this case, it's the Craig Miller Festival. And to give a contemporary example. So ACTA, one of our very favourite sister companies based in Bristol, who are making community theatre today in ways that resonates with how it was made in the past, but in a very contemporary and modern way. So we're looking at how they're still relevant now. You can click on the links of each of those to find out a bit more. Maybe we won't do that now because I think I'm probably running a bit long. But you can see where the links are highlighted for the Craig Miller Festival and for ACTA. The ACTA one, maybe just do the ACTA one, Matty, so we can illustrate. It will open a new tab in your browser and it will take you to their website so you can find out more about them if you want to delve deeper. And then also for each of the entries, we have got a short read and a long read to give you a little bit more if you want to delve deeper. Some of the short reads in this one, they're both, in this one, it's a chapter from A Restless Art. I'm really plugging these two books today, actually. It's one of the chapters from that, which is available as a free download. And the other one is a book there, a long read. But for each of the entries, there's a different bit of reading that you can do. Some of them are just articles, some of them are books. And they're all housed within our library. So that following the links will take you into the library, which Matthew is going to talk about now.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
And you applauded my scrolling skills. Hours. Sarah was putting all the timeline together and I spent hours doing that. Great. Okay, so the library. Our lovely digital library is kind of almost what it says on the tin. It's our kind of resource centre of a mixture of books, articles, toolkits, provocations. And the idea really, well, first thing to mention is that the notion of the library is that it's a democratic space. So it's not myself and Sarah have gone off, said what's your favourite book, and then we put it on the website, and that's that. There is open to contributions, which I believe is on the homepage of the Centre for Excellence.
If you can see there on the homepage, if there are resources you think should be included, please get in touch, and that will take you to a contact us page, so you can upload or share anything that you think we should be housing in the website.
So a nice simple how-to, what we're going to kind of look at is go through a few examples, and some are free download, some you need to purchase, some are a range of toolkits. So maybe if we start with the toolkit, please, Sarah, if we look at the Beautiful Rising. Just there at the top.
Yeah, so you can see that the toolkits are all, everything is organised so that it's the kind of most recent publication first, and as you scroll down you get to older ones. So on some of them there are very classic old texts, and as well as really, really new stuff. So let's go to Beautiful Rising.
And the beauty of this is that it's a lovely free web resource. So the idea is that unfortunately the world in which we live in, we don't have open access to materials in where books can be free as much as possible. But me and Sarah have tried to look at kind of resources that yourselves can use, can access in order to develop your own practice. The Beautiful Rising, I would highly advise that, as well as looking at activism. Also, as well as kind of political activism, there's the artistic activism which Stephen was talking about. The kind of categories of participatory and community arts, policy and impact, theatre, history and styles of toolkits. They're our lovely, nice, broad at present. There's also the search item here, whereas if we just try ethics, please, Sarah. So everything doesn't have to sit, and obviously there's always a crossover between some of our resources.
So you can search by key terms, or you can search by author if you know that you want to find out something that somebody's written, see if it's on there. The other thing I'd say, Matty, is that some of the books, I would say that probably 75% of the stuff that's in the library is available either as a free download through the library or as a free digital resource. And the other 25%, shall we illustrate with this one? So the link will take you to a Google Books page where possible. It gives you a link that you can actually have a look inside the book as much as possible, so you get a better sense of if you want it or not. And it also, you can look and find if you go to get the book in print, you can look to find it in a library as well, so you don't have to buy everything. So we have tried to make them as financially accessible as possible, but we didn't want to exclude books that you could only buy just because we couldn't get them free, because we think they're important to be there as well.
I guess the most important thing for us as the library is that we don't want it to become an internal selection of material. That's probably the most important thing. So really, any contributions, whether it's through the website or come and speak to us at the end of the day, anything like that. This idea is that the library is living. It will continue to grow, and quite rightly so in that respect. I'm just wondering, Sarah, if there's any other functions that we need to...
I think not. I think no, go through the 4 themes, do a search, the free resources. No, I think that's probably it. It's just that it will keep growing and evolving. We're not, we're not the fonts of all knowledge, so please do tell us when we've got gaps and we're missing stuff. Yeah,
absolutely.
I think that's
Yeah.
it.
The last kind of resource to talk about in regards to Centre for Excellence is our global map, which again is obviously all open to your lovely suggestions, because we do not know where every piece of theatre practice is going on around the world. And the idea for us certainly is, there's a political notion regarding the map, is the notion of it's our multitude of opposition. If we are really to look at the ways in which we can use our art to challenge and tackle the dominant discourse globally, is we also need to know what our fellow theatre workers are doing. So this is the idea of the map. And also, a lot of kind of literature is predominantly written in North America, certainly in the UK. From my own experiences of working in Latin America and Eastern Africa, sometimes much more radical work is actually happening outside of such developed nations. However, it's not necessarily documented as much. So, if we could just have a look at 2 examples, please, Sarah. If we go to, let's go to Santiago.
So we can very cleverly scroll in and go smaller and then highlight. So
just an example is Colectivo Sustento, a company who presented at our conference back in 2016, and also a company I've worked with who run a long-term prison theatre project in Santiago, Chile, working with offenders on a long-term basis, sometimes for up to 15 to 18 years, and then working with them upon release, and looking at how their theatre practice can challenge the entrenched kind of neoliberal discourse that exists within Chilean society. And then if you click on the link, it takes you through and connect, more or less. I think the idea really is, as well as just kind of browsing and having a look, is to make connections. Certainly some of the companies who I know who work outside of Europe, always looking to meet, always looking to have those conversations. If I can be a bit personally biased, I would highly advise a little look at this company, just because the work they do is absolutely fantastic and incredibly inspiring work. Another example?
Yeah, I think as well, just to add in there, if you don't mind, there are several books with collections of case studies, which are great, and they're in the library as well. But what we felt was that there wasn't anywhere that was mapping all of that practice, and that's what we wanted to start to do, to kind of build that bigger picture. So please do, again, add to that. If you can, let us know who you think we should be looking at. Okay, let's go into who we want to do next.
If we go to Kenya, if we look
Kenya,
at Lagnet.
I've lost. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, there we go. So just another example here of some of the work that's starting to happen. Certainly, our biggest struggle predominantly was trying to find work from the Global South for a range of reasons, sometimes access to internet resources, sometimes stable domain names. Having worked in such contexts, it's incredibly unpredictable. So if people do know work that is taking place in the Global South, I think there's a real drive for us to make sure that they have a voice. We don't want this to become some kind of pseudo-colonial effort of participatory theatre all being white and European. So Lagnet Crick are a fantastic example of a company who I've been working with recently, looking at making kind of forum theatre work within rural areas in Western Kenya.
And not all of those organisations have websites, so where they don't, we've connected into their Facebook pages. So however they are sharing their work is what we've gone for. Sorry, Matt.
It's all right. that's kind of it, really.
Yeah.
It really is a bit of a kind of, as it is on the tin. It does what it says on the tin. And please,
As you can see, though, we have got, there's plenty of UK-based organisations as well, and European organisations. So organisations that you know of that aren't on here.
Yeah.
Let us know.
Absolutely.
Let's use that. Let's have a quick look. There you go. Theatre for Change Galway. Who knew? There's all sorts of surprises in there. Fabulous. Okay, I think that's the maps, Matty, is it?
Yeah, that's the maps. That's the library.
So we're going back to the home page for collective encounter for the. I've lost the home page. There it is. Okay, and I'm just going to talk briefly about the training aspect of it. So that's the resources. Does anybody want to ask any questions or anything like that at this point about any of the resources that we've been building or?
Bombardment of information.
Yeah.
We had a question.
Yes.
Could you explain neoliberal discourse?
Matthew.
Yeah. Hey. So, the idea is neoliberalism, the economic way in which the world is predominantly
Capitalism.
governed. Yeah.
Contemporary capitalism, and how it functions politically, and that's the language that people are working in, that's the landscape that people are struggling in often.
Yeah.
And it's about trying to create radical alternatives.
Yeah,
I think is what you were talking
absolutely.
about.
The idea, the basic principle, for an example, a very kind of crude example, is the privatisation of the NHS. We would argue that that is a neoliberal idea, that the state should no longer intervene in healthcare, but private business should instead.
And I think you have just highlighted an excellent 2-minute brief encounter, Matthew.
Yes.
I think we'll have neoliberal
Absolutely.
discourse, love. Thank you. Get you on that next week. But it is important. It is important that we're sharing those political ideas because they inform our work and our practice. So thank you so much for that. Right, briefly, we're going to start speeding it up a little bit. We're going to talk very briefly about our training. So the training that's going to be happening as part of the Centre for Excellence. It's about spearheading and advocating training that will diversify the sector, but that will also impact on existing practitioners and organisations. So we have our own training programme, the Radical Makers, which Matthew will talk about shortly. But we're also going to be working with peers across the UK to share our practice, to benchmark our practice, to look at the different training initiatives that are happening in similar settings, and to look at what we can learn from each other, how we can share that, and where we've got specific particular bits of expertise. So we might have Theatre for Social Change as our particular one of our particular areas of expertise. Somebody else might offer a different area of expertise. We can share those, bring those together, and offer training to a wider network of partners, particularly to organisations who are just beginning to develop their participatory and outreach programmes and who want to do it really well and really ethically. So over the next 4 years, there'll be a whole initiative to develop and promote those kind of training opportunities. And if that's something that as an organisation you're involved with, you're interested in being involved with, we would really love to hear from you. Whether it's something you feel you can contribute to, that you have training programmes that are relevant to this that you'd like to share, or whether it's that you're an organisation that's emerging in your practice and you would like to work with us to develop some kind of bespoke training package for your organisation, please do get in touch. We'd really like to hear from you. And then finally, I'm going to just mention about the conversations that are going on as part of this. So we are... first of all, the Facebook page. Could you go back? And so this is something I'm not altogether very familiar with, but I'm going to become familiar with. So join the debate online. So we've set up Centre for Excellence Facebook page, and we're hoping that through this, people will share their ideas, share their resources, start conversations around excellence. And we've gone for Facebook because even though I think many of our youth are not using Facebook so much anymore, many of the people that we engage with through our training initiatives are doing, and it seems to be the most accessible platform for having these kinds of conversations. So please do join up, join the group and start the conversations going. Share your ideas, share your resources. Also then, Matty, we'll go to the talking participation, which are the events that will happen three to four times annually. We had our first one in the summer and it was fantastic, and thank you, there are a couple of people here today who were there then. It was looking at excellence. What does excellence mean? What is participatory theatre? What does excellence mean in that context? What might a centre for excellence look like for it to be of use? So we had a brilliant conversation. We had two provocations. Myself and Julia Samuels from 20 Stories High gave little provocations, and then we had really useful and detailed conversations about it. We're trying still to figure out how best to share that back, and I think it might be via the Facebook page, but that's part of the process that's still ongoing in terms of figuring out how you can really share the meat of that kind of live conversation and the dynamic of that, how that's best to communicate. So any ideas for that would be very welcome as well. The next one we're going to be having is going to be on the 29th of November, and it will be in Liverpool at 3 o'clock, and it's going to be looking at cultural democracy. So anybody who's interested in having a talk about cultural democracy, what that means for the participatory arts, participatory theatre sectors, please do come along. Again, there'll be a couple of people doing provocations, and then there'll be a general group discussions. Probably again we'll use a similar format. We used a World Cafe format last time where people talked around tables and everybody got to move around and talk to different people about it. So do please come along to that, and also again let us know of any themes that you think we should be discussing at those events. What do you think are the pressing things that the participatory theatre sector should be talking about? What do we need to have those conversations about? So I think that's it in terms of what the centre is doing. So the resources we've shared, we've told you about the conversations, we've told you about the training. We're going to wrap up our live feed very shortly. I want to end with a quote from Francois Matarasso, his book A Restless Art, one last one. And he says, "There are few definitive answers, but many ways of doing things better." And I think that really sums up what this is all about. People are doing brilliant work out there, and there's shoddy work happening as well. Let's share the brilliant work. Let's find new ways to do it. Let's learn from each other together to get rid of the shoddy work and make sure that it all gets much, much better in its different contexts. So we would invite you to share with us your thoughts for how you think the Centre of Excellence could be improved. You can book for the Talking Participation Seminar there, but Matty, if you go back to the home page now, or is it, no, it's not, it's the slide actually. Please, the slide that has all the contact stuff on. You've got the Twitter feed here, the email thing, you can't quite see, it's Harriet at Collective Encounters. Email Harriet with anything, and there are get in touch buttons on pretty much every page of the Centre for Excellence on the website, so please do. In terms of continuing to develop and grow the resources, another thing that we hope to bring on stream in the next few months is Close Encounters, which will be more detailed, lengthy conversations and interviews with people who are working in the field. And ideas you have, things where you think there are gaps in resources, please do tell us. So, just before we finish up the live stream and we start to talk more about the local provision of training and the radical makers here, I'm going to invite you both digitally and in the room to share two thoughts with us if you would. So if you are watching digitally, if you could tweet it with the hashtag Excellence in Participatory Theatre. And if you are in the room, you've got two coloured cards, hopefully, and if you haven't, we'll get some to you. And what I'd like you to do is to write on the pink cards, or with the hashtag put offer, what can you offer to a Centre for Excellence? Do you have resources, ideas, thoughts? Is there anything that you would like to share with it? And on the other coloured card, which I think is green, Harriet? Yep, on the green card, or when you're tweeting, if you write take, what might you find useful? What of the things that we've shared with you today, what seems to you to be the most likely to be of use to you as a participatory theatre maker? So I'm going to wind up the live feed now, so thank you very much everybody who has been watching from outside of Liverpool, and we hope that you will be involved in the Centre for Excellence moving forward. Thank you.